Hey, welcome into the arena this morning. One of the most common questions, probably the most common question I get on videos, has to do with leg cues. Folks asking me, should I put my leg here when I'm loping? Should I put my leg there when I'm trotting? And I get it. It can be a very complicated issue, leg cues. And when I listen to somebody who's an expert talk about it, I usually don't understand what they're saying. And you may have the same thing. So I'm not an expert, but I can show you what I do, why I do it, why I think it works, okay? First of all, there are your 3 leg positions. Up here by the cinch is leg position 1. Right here in the middle where you are going to re-riding, that's your middle position, that's leg position 2. Leg position 3 is back here by the back cinch. And when you cue your horse, you want to turn your toe out, okay? You don't want to, as a general rule, you don't want to cue them too much just by pushing with your toe straight. So if I want her to move her hip, I'm going to come back here, turn my toe out, push, she'll move her hip over. If I want her to move her shoulder, I'll come up to the front, touch here, and she'll move her shoulder over, won't you? Thank you. Okay. The middle position is used for several things. One of them is this. If I'm going to walk her and bend her body in an arc like this, and I call these foundation circles. So I'm bending her body to the left. If you'll look at my left foot, I'm bumping her with my left foot to ask her to bend her rib cage right here. If she doesn't do it to my satisfaction, I'll add my spur and I'll say bend your rib cage. With my outside leg, it's in leg position 3. When I start teaching this to my students, most of them will tend to bump with their inside leg and they take their outside leg off. And look what happens when I did that. The horse starts walking outside the circle. So that outside leg keeps her in the circle. And it's in leg position 3 because I want her to keep her hip engaged. Let me see if I can push it in. Engaged in the circle like this. I don't want her hip on the outside of the circle. Okay? So, and then if I switch and go the other direction, I'll just switch my legs. So if I switch to go right, let me come and do it, coming right at you. And I've got her nose slightly tipped to the left for this left bend. Okay, so I'm going to come right at you and I'm going to switch to the right hand bend right now. Start bumping her with my right leg. I put my left leg back to leg position 3 and asked her to bend her body to the right. Okay, so another question I was asked recently had to do with, should you use leg position 1 to turn your horse when you're riding them? When I'm starting a colt, which I do a lot, when I'm starting a colt, I use leg position 1 a lot because it makes sense to the colt. I start on the ground. I'll bump them. I'll stand on the ground and bump them up here by the shoulder with the stirrup until they understand the concept. And then I do this little exercise, and you might have seen me do it. Let's just do it with Ruby here. I'll just come over here into the fence at a 45-degree angle like this and stop. And then I'll take my left leg and touch her, leg position 1, ask her to move that shoulder over like that. And that's how I start teaching colts to turn and move their shoulders. As that colt progresses, which Ruby is fairly far along in her training, I don't use leg position 1 hardly at all, okay? So if I'm trotting along here, so I'm just trotting straight and both of my legs are in leg position 2. If I want to turn left, I'll just push with my right leg and she'll turn. And that was leg position 3. Okay, if I want to turn right, I'll put my left leg, push, and she'll turn right. That's leg position 3. Okay, so she's pretty far along in her training, so she understands that if I push her hip, I want all of her to go. It just takes time to develop all of this, so you need to start where your horse is. If your horse doesn't understand leg cues at all, start on the ground. Okay, get off your horse and start like this. Take your stirrup, bump them back here, and let them know you want them to move that hip. Take your stirrup here, bump them here, let them know you want them to move the shoulder. So that's where you start. And then as your colt gets more and more developed, and you could even do that with an older horse, I think, that didn't know the leg cues. Another question I get asked commonly is, every time I touch my horse with their legs, they take off. Which I've had horses like that, especially older horses. The only thing they knew legs were for, if they felt your legs, they'd take off, okay? And the way to fix that, because it's not correct, someone has taught the horse incorrectly, and it's fairly common, the way to fix that is to just get your horse in a pretty small circle here and start bumping them like this. And I had a horse last year that I had to do this quite a bit with. I just got him where he couldn't really go anywhere, and I just kept bumping him, and if he sped up, I'd bump him harder. I wasn't hurting him, just bumping on him, and then when he slowed down, I took my legs off and let him slow down. So basically, I was desensitizing him up to a point to my legs. Okay, last question I was asked was, what do you do with your legs when you're loping? Okay. First of all, let me show you the cue to lope your horse off. At least this is the cue that in the reining horse world, in that genre, this is the cue we use. If we're going to lope our horse to the left, let me see if I can get straight at you where you can see it here. If I'm going to lope my horse to the left, she needs to move her hip to the left. So that means I'm going to take my right leg, leg position 3, I'm going to push her hip to the left, like that. She needs to lift up her left shoulder in order to take that left lead. So I'm going to take my leg off like this, and I'm exaggerating it so you can see it. I'm going to take my leg off, and I'm also leaning a little bit away from the lead I want her to take so that she can easily lift that shoulder and take that lead. So that's how I ask for it. Once she starts loping, I will keep this outside leg engaged, but I'm not really pushing on her unless I need to. And see, when I touched her, she went ahead and moved. But as she's loping along, I'll just keep the top of my cowboy boot touching her there in leg position 3. My inside leg, I will basically do the same. I'm probably not going to use it very much. The only reason I would need that inside leg if I'm loping a circle to the left would be if she started ducking her shoulder in. If she started dropping her shoulder into the inside of the circle, then I would lift up and push that shoulder back out like that, okay? So let me turn around and I'll lope away from you. So I'm going to shape her body to the left, push her hip to the left, ask her to lope off. She loped off on the left lead. So as I come around, you can see my right leg is just barely touching her in leg position 3. Just barely touching her. My left leg isn't touching her at all because she's staying right where I want her to go. Now, if I want to tighten this circle up, all I'm going to do, she slowed down. That's a violation, babe. Don't do that. If I want to tighten that circle up, all I'm going to do is look inside and push harder with my right leg. And she should bring that circle in like that. Okay. Then you take your legs off to stop. Okay? So I hope that clears it up. I hope it doesn't, confuse you any. If you do have basic questions, feel free to shoot me a comment. I'll do my best to answer them for you.